Okay, good evening, everyone. We're here for a regular council meeting of September 20th. Before we start, we'll go with quick introductions, and then we'll jump right into it. So we have with us tonight Councillor Joel Lemoine.
Good evening.
Councillor Shane Pelletier.
Good evening.
Assistant CEO Dominic Lemoine.
Good evening.
CEO Mitch DeVal.
Evening.
Myself, Chris Ewan. Councillor Janine Boulanger.
Good evening.
Councillor Jason Bondarchuk.
Good evening.
And we have a very special new member of council, our youth representative and youth councillor, Mireille Lemoine. She'll be with us for the, I believe, rest of the, until June. So welcome, and we hope you enjoy every minute of it, even the bad parts. Without further ado, we will go right into it, and then once we get to public hearings, I'll explain the process. So, item number 1, meeting called to order. Do I have a mover? Councillor Shane Pelletier, second Councillor Joel Lemoine. Any questions? Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried 5-0. Thank you. We'll open the meeting at 7:01 p.m. Item number 2, adoption of the agenda. Do I have a mover? Councillor Jason Bondarchuk, second Councillor Janine Boulanger. I just would like to go straight to public hearings if council is okay with that, and then we'll jump back to the regular order. Good? Good. Okay, with that change, I will call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So, jumping into item 6, public hearings. We only have a couple today, I believe. So the way it's going to work is we are going to call the item number and read out some specifics, and then I will open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone wishing to make a presentation, the applicant specifically, on the public hearing. After that, I will ask if there's anyone wishing to speak in favor in person, online in person. At that time, you would then turn on your microphone and your video camera and say your name for us, please. And then we will jump into anyone wishing to speak against in person. Sorry, and when I do ask for somebody in person to come and speak, if they want to, you just raise your hand and I call you up. And then, so it'd be speaking against in person, and then online in person or on the phone. And then we'll do one last round, and then I will close the public hearing, and that's time for council to do their debates and deliberations. So without further ado, we are going into item 6.1.1, C22, 2023 Lewis, 1300 Bartmanovich Road.
The proposal is to allow a single-family dwelling in the agricultural limited zone. Again, according to the Planning Act, notices have been sent out to surrounding properties as well as distributed to the McDonald-Ridgeout Planning District, Ridgeout Manager, Building Inspector, Council, CEO, and Fire Chief. Was also posted on site on our municipal board, municipal website, and the connect message was recently sent out.
Thank you. I'll open the public hearing at 7:03 p.m. Is there anyone wishing to make a presentation? Applicant wanting to speak on behalf? No? Not at this time. Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor in person? Anyone wishing to speak in favor online or on the phone? Anything received in favor?
Nothing received.
Anyone wishing to speak against in person? Come on up, sir.
You all have a copy of my presentation.
What's the last name, sir? What's the name, yeah?
Fred Nitka.
Yeah, we've got your, well, I believe it's the same letter, yeah.
And do the Lewises have a copy of this one?
Nope. Possibly not, yeah, I would assume not.
Okay.
Yep, go for it.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and make this presentation. It means a lot to us, actually. And without further ado, after reviewing the materials that we had, or the lack of materials for the most part, we've had to create our own kind of structure to look at this application. We've come to the conclusion that we are not in favor of the conditional use application for the following reasons. First, the proposed development includes significant bank loading bank loading potentially leading to bank failure, which is a very common feature in our neighborhood. We've discussed this a number of times with other, with regard to roads in our area. The proposed development constitutes an obstruction and a deflection of flows from the Red River to the detriment of adjacent landowners. And the development is not suitable for the land involved. First, as an introduction, again, my name is Fred Nitt, my wife is Kathy Fisher. We've lived at 1268 Bart Manovich Road for the last 30 years again, and in those 30 years, we've seen 7 or 8 floods, including in 1997 and 2009, the worst, second worst flood of the century. We've seen what the floods do to us. We see what the flood does to the community. We see what the flood does to individuals. Actually, not a pretty sight, actually. We've also watched the community has changed over the many years as well. When I first moved into Bart Manovich Road, there were a lot of old people out there, elderly people, I should say, and they market garden, they did all kinds of things, and the 97 flood erased that off the map. Actually, these people were unable to rebuild their houses after the flood because they were depreciated. They no longer were in a wage earning part of their life, and so we have different people out here now, including younger, more affluent people, which is fine, but they appreciate the beauty of the area, but not necessarily appreciate the history, which I think is kind of interesting here, actually. And the history is very important in this regard. As for the background, we first became aware of this development, and by way of hundreds, if not thousands of trucks going past our place, they deposited fill onto the lot, along with the noise of them emptying the fill as well as maneuvering the fill, and it happened for the last number of years, and it continues to happen even now, actually. And so we're certainly aware that something was happening. Having said that, I have to go back. 1997 was after the 1997 flood. Gerard, what's his name? Sorry. What's that?
I said, that's all right.
Okay. The previous owner, actually, he got a whole bunch of scrapers in and cats and everything else, and scooped up his property up into a hill, actually, and he left it like that for quite a number of years before, I guess, the Lewis purchased it more recently, and so we expressed our concerns at that time to Janine, to a number of people with the Manitoba Hydrologic Forecasting and Water Management personnel. The consensus from them was that the RM was in a better position to address the issue. I'm not sure about that, but they maintained that, I guess they knew that the RM was going through the development of a planning document, and they thought that was best addressed by the municipality, so I left it alone until, I guess, I received this notice, actually. Our assessment was that, again, our primary concerns were with the bank slumping, potential bank slumping. It hasn't happened yet, but it may well happen. With the obstruction of flow or deflection of flow, and thirdly, the inappropriate use of these agricultural lands in the first place. Again, as for the bank slumping, the proponent, it occurs, bank slumping occurs in Red River, on Red River Drive. It also occurs all along Bart Manovich Road. I don't know if you're aware of it, but Bart Manovich Road used to be a nice straight road coming up Red River Drive, running past all these places, and then all of a sudden these cracks start showing up on the ground, and it disappeared. They rerouted the road, and again, it started slumping even more, and they rerouted for the second time, actually, and so the road has a history of kind of disappearing into the river. We've seen slumping at Jacques' place, which is immediately downstream of that. They had to relocate the building. The banks have also failed. Lord Harvey has been talking about something on his property now, and downstream of it, Lewis, I don't know if there is something there at all, but downstream of that, on the next property, downstream, there's been significant something that's been there for decades, actually. You don't really know it, you don't see it on the photos, but if you're walking through their forest, all of a sudden you go down 4 feet, and the whole land mass is just migrated into the river. The second issue that we have is with regard to water, this obstruction flows actually, and this relates directly to the mound actually. The mound is there, and any obstruction in flow will cause a pattern of dispersion around it, and I think Monique has one of our photographs here. It's a video. It would be video, a graphic one.
I think council has the photo. The trees underwater, right?
We have a photo in the submission, but that's just a screenshot from the actual video, and I think the video might be more importantly. The video what I'm presenting here is just a tree in my backyard in 2022. I want to illustrate it, that the dynamics of flow diversion around an obstacle, and that's what we propose to do here actually. And then I want to compare it to the site plan as well as to other studies. I mean, there's many studies on this. Graphic one.
Yeah, that's fine. Any other one?
I can see it. It's blinking, so something's going on.
I think we'll show the video after the fact, council will have access to that, but,
We'll show the video after the fact. We're having a hard time loading it, but council has access to it. So we'll get you to continue.
they said to carry on.
I think that's us.
Yeah. It's, the video is kind of crystal clear actually.
You are, go ahead.
No video though? Just try once.
Maybe I'll let us get back to the video. Is that all right?
We're just.
Oh, one second.
There it is. This is the video. Okay, again, just a tree in my backyard. This is 2022. You can see that the flow is around.
Short video, so.
You can see that the flow is around, and an object in a flowing channel will disperse around the tree. Reflect to the side, so the video is not showing up very well, but
Yeah, that's all we're getting is just that 4 seconds, so that's all it's showing.
anyway, you can see that what's happening. It's moving around the tree. There's another video that shows it even better, but I'm not going to chance it with another video, so let's carry on actually. The piling up of water around the obstruction leads to the flows being deflected at a greater velocity than the upstream velocities. There's a paper I referred to that looked at the same situation in a flume and looked at an obstruction along the side of the flume. This is Mulahassan. In 2010, he modeled a flow parameters in open channel with sidewall obstruction, which is analogous to the situation that we have here. The results indicated that increase in flow velocities around an obstruction were at least two times the average velocity upstream. And you have, can we show graphic 2? The only reason it's in the presentation, what you can see in the presentation, is that the water is deflecting around the obstacle. The obstacle is a little white thing in the center of the box. It's deflecting to the side, and I particularly refer you to the center one actually, which illustrates it best actually. It shows higher velocities being generated alongside the object. There are three objects, and they all illustrate the same thing. The scales on the graphics are somewhat different, but the center one at least shows it in better detail actually. This is one of the issues that affect us, and likely will continue to affect us for the future. How can we have figure 3, or graphic 3? This, can you enlarge it? Perfect, actually. This is the hill, this is Lemoyne's Hill. In the background to the north, actually, you'll see a little blue thing in the bush. That's my woodshed, which I've made reference to before, or made reference in my presentation. Our garden is just to the north and west of that, and what I will do is I'll illustrate that flows coming off the hill are having an adverse effect on our property, actually. We'll go to this graphic 4. This is my wonderful woodshed. It's situated straight south of the beginning of the hill, and as you can see, the current pattern coming past the shed is fairly high velocity. It was much higher at the tail end of the flood, actually, and so we have evidence even at this stage that the water's coming south across to our property. Graphic 5. Graphic 5 is the same thing. It shows it again for the whole woodshed, and the mound that we're talking about is directly in behind the shed. I shouldn't say at the start of the mound, directly in behind the shed, actually, which is significant because the photos I showed and everything else, and the schematic shows that the deflection starts at the start of the obstruction. I guess one of the issues is that this is for a flood of 2022 magnitude. What would happen with floods of larger magnitude, actually? And that's a very large. I mean, if you look at the little tree that we have sitting in there that's flexed around it, this mound is considerably larger than any little tree, actually. It would have a prominent effect. And one thing that's interesting about this particular proposal is that the hill actually is situated on the border of the property. It adjoins, it's next to the neighbor, actually. I mean, there are many mounds in our neighborhood. They're out in the fields and they're all over the place. Any adverse effects that they may have are on their own property, actually. This is the one situation where, because of the size of the hill versus the size of the property, the width of the hill, it can't help but show some adverse effects on neighboring properties. Those are the two key issues we have. The third one isn't probably the most important one, actually, but I'll save it for last. Is the development's not probably suitable for the land as well. Partly because of the size of the property versus the size of the mound. The subject property was never intended for development. The land was flooded frequently, supported by riparian cover and habitat, and were actively farmed in the past. Hence, the agricultural limited zone. Full-timers do well enough not to develop in these areas, these lands, and built at some distance from the river. The other two concerns that we have noted, in the presentation, the bank stability and the flow obstruction, kind of directly relate to the inappropriate use of these lands. In summary, we received a notice of hearing in the mail and the proposal, the proposal is to allow a single-family development, single-family dwelling on an agricultural development. One thing in the hearing process that we would have examined the project in its entirety. In fact, I'm not really sure, but I'm examining the proposal is to build a house, and it doesn't mention building the hill or whether the hill was there or connected, whatever the story is. It's kind of an odd situation, actually, and I used to deal with environmental issues, actually, and we never parcel out a project where you do part of it and then do it the other part later, actually. It seems kind of odd, actually. Again, the construction or the enhancement of the mound was a prerequisite of the current proposal of erecting the dwelling. That should have been consistent with the planning principles of the McDonald Beach Road Planning Development planning, and which are to manage growth and protect agricultural land, and the objective to ensure development is congruent with the surrounding land uses and does not occur on lands that are unsuitable for what is being proposed. And I think this is an issue where that may be the case. The plan also makes a number of other specifies a number of conditions as well, and that under section 3.8.7, development shall not adversely affect, alter, obstruct, or increase water flows, flood velocity, or flood stages, and should only be allowed if the cumulative effect of all foreseeable development in the flood-prone area is within the specified in provincial regulations or by local bylaws. I suspect that doesn't occur with the latter part. It goes on to talk about risk of life and all other things. The other one is, except for authorized activities such as filling, excavation, and clearing, which would otherwise accelerate or promote damages due to causes such as erosion or bank instability, shall be wholly prohibited. And there's a couple other conditions there as well. The highlighted sections are obviously relevant to our presentation. Section A, the prohibition against development where water flow or flood velocities or flood stages are adversely affect, obstruct or increase flows. As outlined in the presentation, the deflection of water off the mountain towards the north undoubtedly increases water velocities on our property and like our neighbors' properties as well. The impact of large flush, as I said, is uncertain.
Mr. Nick, I will just give you 1 minute to wrap up and summarize because we've been going on
Okay,
for...
I'll guess I'll have to do that, actually.
Flooding is not a Manitoba issue. It happens everywhere else, and thanks to Google and YouTube and all kinds of things, you can get a feel for what's happening in other areas, and particularly in the United States, where FEMA deals with flooding and tornadoes and everything else on a regular basis. Actually, some of the advice provided by FEMA is that perhaps the most important function of a natural floodplain is to convey floodwaters from upstream to downstream, the portion of floodplain that conveys most of the floodplain is called the floodway. The structure placed in the floodplain back the flow of water and can increase flood height upstream for the obstruction, and increase velocity of flow adjacent to and downstream of the obstruction. There's another section here that says floodway includes the stream channel. There's an inherent greater safety issues and as well as cost issues as well. In summary, my summary, I'll read verbatim. Summarize the subject land should never have been cleared or excavated. The construction of the earthen mound should never have been undertaken and by extension, no house should be ever built on that site for the same reason. We do not envy the RM council that have to make a decision. I don't envy the Lewises either. I mean, they're wonderful people. I'd love to see them in our community. I'd love for them to be in a house and part of the community, but not on that particular mound, actually. That's the issue that I have, actually. And no matter how you look at it, this is a no-win situation for everybody, actually. In the end, I guess the question I have is approval for this proposal. Does it open the floodgates for other approvals for other similar properties? I mean, is this going to become a precedent, I guess, is the issue I worry about, actually. And again, I say here, no matter how you look at it, it's a no-win situation for anyone. In the end, the Red River will ultimately make the decision for those of us that have been here long enough. The river is not usually a favorable decision.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Nitka? Comments?
No, I just thank you for your, time you put into the presentation with your graphs, and you've been there for 30-some years, you've seen what comes and goes, and I think it really helps open the eyes to the area.
Again, one of the concerns I have is that things have changed, actually. I mean, there are mountains everywhere, actually, and I don't think anybody actually has any idea what the impact is. We participated in all the review of after the 1997 flood, and we highlighted that at that time and said, listen, everybody's building mountains. What is the cumulative effect of all these mountains going to be on flow conditions in the community? And nobody was willing to do anything. Water resources had nothing to do with it. But having said that, the International Joint Commission, as well as Manitoba Water Commission, actually, at the time, we raised these things as issues that probably should be addressed, but they've never touched on, actually. And it's because of these kind of lapses in judgment that we find ourselves in this kind of a situation. We shouldn't be here, actually, and we never should have been here, actually. And the original owner should probably never been allowed to scrape up this hill in the first place, and unfortunately, the Lewises should have been maybe advised, or at least known that it was going to be a problem for them. So with that, I thank you very much for your time.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak against in person? Come on up, sir.
You ready? Okay. I haven't been to one of these before, so well, welcome the first time. I'm Vince Braun, that's my wife Deanna. We live 1290 Bartmanovich, which is adjacent to the Lewises. We've lived there for just over 2 years, 2021. So we've witnessed a couple, we were there for a major flood in 2022, and then this year with kind of that minor and moderate flood in spring. So there's a couple concerns that we had since we've moved in, and observations that we've had that we've noticed. So a couple of things that I just wanted to bring to your attention. One of them is the hill. This hill is very big. It's very high in comparison to most of the mounds that are in the neighborhood. I don't know why or what, I guess, if there's legislation or something saying how to build a hill or anything like that. I'm not aware of that. But it is very big. It's very steep right up against our property line as well, and so we have concern that the slumping, and any collapse would, enter into our property. And it does cause issues with the water flows that we've seen over the last couple of years, and increases that coming around the hill towards, into our yard. So the hill being one thing. The other thing, if you saw from what Fred showed on the kind of the aerial image of the property, not only is there a hill, but there's also a pond, and that pond has been dug out, so it's quite deep, and that pond is right by the hill, and it's very close to our property, and it's very close to the edge of the riverbank. And what we've seen in the last 2 years with the flood is water that, as the rivers come up, is all of a sudden breaks through and enters into the pond, and really with a lot of force enters in, and a lot of force then when the river goes down, it pulls out, and it's pulling out a lot of material. And what we've seen in the last 2 years, so 2022, and then also this year, what seems like hundreds of trucks coming in to haul backfill to try to build that up again, and then we saw that in 2022, and then the same thing happened this spring, and more fill was brought in to kind of build that up again. And we've seen water kind of seeping out of the banks when we kayak on the river. That's kind of coming from the pond in what we're observing. So we're concerned that eventually we're going to see in the next few years that the riverbank could potentially be the pond that's right up against their property. And through kayaking on there, we have seen significant slumping and collapse of part of the riverbank, a significant number of feet already. So also in that, a lot of the trees are dying, and there's not a lot of trees on the property to really keep that land in good shape and from sinking. So, and the final thing I wanted to say was that there was a geotechnical study that was done, that the Lewises did, that was done in 2021 in a drought year. And then we've had a significant flood in 2022, and then again, a minor moderate flood. And I don't know what's all changed, other than there's been modifications and changes with all the earth that's been hauled in and changed since that report. So I don't know what that report then means based on what the current design and what's currently been done. So, so those are my concerns.
Councilor, any questions or comments?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just, I've only been there 2 years, and I grew up most of my life along the Red River, and you guys aren't even at a straightaway, unlike some, 1154 and 1206. From your couple of years here on your property, I lost here, at 1290, I'll call it, on your south side, so at the river's edge, did you see, especially after 2022, I think you alluded to it there, but it eroded?
It did very little on our stretch. Part of the reason is the slope and bank towards the river is shallow, and then it increases in elevation as it gets to the lower property.
Okay.
So it's much steeper on their property than ours, and we plant and encourage a lot of trees, like we put trees in, put all kinds of vegetation in to try to keep it short of
And again, I could defer the question, but you mentioned it, so that, the lake the dugout wasn't used to build the hill?
I'm not sure. It
Okay,
will.
I'll hold up that question. Okay. Thanks.
I just have a question, so you're being the immediate neighbor, have you noticed, so in 2022, when the flood came through, did you, notice the pattern change, the flow around the mound, like the big hill, do you see that it was creating more of a velocity around the hill as opposed to
Yeah.
going?
Absolutely,
You see a
yeah.
change from the previous one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Okay, anyone else wishing to speak against in person? Anyone online or on the phone wishing to speak against? Anything received against?
3 letters received, one from Mr. Fred, and one from the previous speaker, Mr. Vince. and also a letter from Rob and Bob Stewart that council has from, Marchand.
Council has reviewed and is okay with not reading the whole letter out. Taking the time on that, thank you. Okay, one last call, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor, against, ask general questions, make any comments before I close the public hearing, online or on the phone or in person?
Do you read that Stuart's letter?
No, I decided not, Mr. Chair, not to, because council has the letter already. Yeah. Anything?
Is that letter for or against?
An objection, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is the argument on it?
Thank you. Oh, me read?
Oh, I can read it.
I thought you were gonna read it.
No, I can read it. No, I'll read it. We would appreciate you forwarding this to Mayor Chris Ewan, our council, and CAO Mr. Bell. Thanks for your help. We oppose C-22-2023, which is a conditional use application to build a single family dwelling on agricultural limited property at 1300 Bartmanovich Road. We consider it not to be in the best interest of the R.M. Richard, the applicants, and adjacent property owners. Bullet 1, to allow for further development on a dead-end road with a history of road collapse washouts. Bartmanovich Road is being managed continually to provide safe and secure access to properties beyond the slum. To allow development on a riverbank property that is subject to ongoing erosion, mitigation of riverbank issues will be never-ending, expensive, and typically it foists riverbank degradation and erosion issues onto adjacent properties. To allow withdrawal of agricultural limited property that could be used efficiently, economically for agricultural purposes, example, apiary and forage crops, high-yield fruit production such as half-cap berries. As residents of Marchand Road East for well over 3 decades, our experience indicates that future expansion of existing flood-protected hills accompanies a need want by property owners to expand beyond the initial home construction phase. More space to place sheds, garages, etc. at 1300 Bartmanovich Road would necessitate expanding the elevated pad, and that would further burden an already challenged and unstable riverbank. Flood protection mounds have a negative impact on adjacent properties as floodwaters scour downstream land structures. Drainage is also altered as floodwaters recede. Further hill development at 1300 Bartmanovich Road would only exacerbate existing problems. The outside cutting edges of the Red River, as at 1300 Bartmanovich Road, constantly erode the riverbank, often leading to catastrophic bank failure. There are 3 such properties on Marchand Road east of Red River Drive, which have had flood protection severely compromised as the inevitable riverbank erosion continued after the 1997 flood of the century. One property already has erosion-induced slumping and fissures in its ring dike. One property cannot attain current flood protection levels as the failing riverbank will not support the added weight. The third property suffers ongoing riverbank slumping despite expensive mitigation actions, riprap placement over the years. It is between 2 lots already abandoned due to riverbank failure. Marchand Road East is also an area of concern for the RMS and residents in that riverbank slumping is threatening the road itself, stranding many homes without access. Bartmanovich Road faces exactly the same issue. Access to residents east of the impending failure will first be compromised by road damage, then prevented entirely from accessing their properties by road. Then, the property owner's equity will be lost until the RM provides new safe road access. The apparent appeal of living on riverbank property disappears when due diligence is taken in considering the liabilities associated with agricultural properties in high-risk flood zones, with eroding riverbanks on dead-end roads with a history of collapsing portions. The RM Council is responsible for safe, secure, and responsible development in Richard, and as such, the C-22-2023 should be denied. Thank you for the opportunity to express our opinions regarding Barb and Rob Stewart.
Okay, any final comments or questions?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, come on.
Okay, so when we bought our property, for starters, I don't know, there's so many points that have been made here that I just don't even know actually where to begin. When we purchased our property, there was what I believe is called the borrow pit that came, or there was allowed to happen after the flood of 97, where they dug this, what we now is our pond, and created the mound in which, we would, of course, are hoping to put our house on, so it's not underwater. For the height of it, the height of the mound back then was built up to the, flood of 97 height, I believe, and.
Yeah, it was close.
It was close, so we had to raise it a couple of feet, so definitely that did happen. Of course, nobody wants to live on a cliff drop-off either, so the ground has been added, or whatever you wanna call it, to
But
make a
mostly-
nice gradual thing down to the pond.
Go ahead.
The pond itself, yes, we all are in agreement that it is too close to the riverbank, and this is why we are working to actually fill it in to
That's what we
further
mostly do.
stabilize it. And the majority of these truckloads that have been coming in have been to fill that in. The pond is probably, I don't even
Does
know,
anybody own the
1/3
property?
remains
Do
from when it started.
Do you guys, any of you guys know the property at all? Have you been there?
Well, you have the gate locked, so I didn't wanna.
Yeah,
we see it under.
I get it, but the way that he took a cat and scraper and he scraped that pond and he went all alongside the riverbank as well. And we filled that completely in, just re-stabilized that all. So I mean, everyone has a concern with the hill, but the main concern was that pond. Cause if you lost the bank, well, then we lose the property and we lose everything. Now the water's gonna be touching their property. So in a
Actually
sense,
touching it,
I've
not
actually
just flooding
improved
it and removing it.
it's, I'd say halfway filled.
But it's, the intention is to completely fill it.
That's right. So that'll re-stabilize, then we can grow new trees and we can bring that place back to where it needs to be. Like, we inherited a mess, it's really all there is to it.
We have tried to plant trees as well, just to be clear, the
Yeah,
DRA, the mall is very hard to maintain this type of property when you don't actually live there as well. Trust me, we don't wanna live on a bald mud field either, so like, obviously, it all has to
But
happen in stages,
It
so.
boils down to being the last guy on the block, they all live down there, so they're all happy and content, but when you're the new guy, you're always the enemy, and that's the way I feel. And I mean, we're trying our best to fill that pond in and re-stabilize the bank, we spent $18,000 on a geotechnical survey, you know.
We didn't know flood was coming 1 year later, of course, as nobody actually does when they go down these.
I think we've done our due diligence, I'm in construction, like, we have a foundation plan that's suitable for that particular style of build, so.
Initially, when we started, we had intended on like a home and a separate shop. The mound is not big enough for that. Once we did our geotechnical survey, realizing, and where we wanted to put it, of course, is to have the beautiful view of the river. We wanted it on the river side of the mound. Once we went through our geotechnical survey and they deemed that it's not stable there, you need to be back before the,
Well, he gave us
Setback.
a development setback.
and then we realized, okay, we only have maybe 1/3 of our actual hill that is behind that line. We went back, paid the drafting guys all over again, the sound engineer went back to it. The home that we would be building has a shop and a home all within 4 walls, essentially. So
It's a one unit.
Rob and Barb, there's no additional building going to be going on this down the road either.
Yeah, the single building,
It
that's it.
Tried to be well thought out and meticulous in our space and our space planning for them, so.
Council, do you have any questions?
I have a question, and I should have gone down, I did drive down the road, but I couldn't, you can't see from there, but it'd be nice to see the land. But if you could describe to me, you mentioned that you don't wanna have like a sharp drop off, that's why you're sloping it towards the pond, so we appreciate that. But what about on the property line? You're so close to that property line, what are your plans for that?
Well, the hill is well within the property line and then goes to a 3-to-1 slope up. It's settling right now, so once I put a home there or something, then I'll regrade that side appropriately.
You don't see that eroding and slumping down into the neighbor's property and washing
No,
out?
it's all been compacted, tight, track packed, built properly.
Okay,
Like, there's lots of hills that are built as long as they're built properly. You get
Yeah.
proper vegetation on that hill, you get trees growing again.
so so the geotechnical study was done in 2021, and I totally appreciate you didn't anticipate a flood, but there was one unfortunately, and you've had to build up as a result, add more fill and do that?
No, we just built to the provincial guidelines.
Okay, I'm just wondering if you could go back to Trek, or what were they,
Yeah, track.
Trek Geotechnical and get a top-up to this report, just to ensure.
We haven't added to the hill since the report.
Oh,
The
okay,
only-
I understood you had.
No, that's what they're trying to say, that we did, but that's not what happened.
Oh, so the truck's coming in with to fill your pond?
That's right.
I got
And
you,
the
okay.
riverbank slumping.
Okay,
And stabilize that bank.
okay. What about, have you looked at drainage, just regular, let's take the flood out of the picture. What about regular drainage, like, when you build,
Watershed? Yeah,
when you
it's
build
controlled.
stuff, it's controlled on your property, nothing is drained?
No,
I guess we'd have to have some kind of report for that, right?
yeah, the geotechnical took that all into consideration. It's a 53-page report.
Yeah, I know, I read a lot of it, but
Yeah.
I'm not a geotechnical
Like,
engineer, so
I
it's
mean,
nice to have a,
I know
Summary of it?
Fred has his concerns, but what's his background? Is he a hydrologist, or does he have the means to get some kind of a engineered report stating or supporting his opinions? These are just kind of hearsay. And he's worried about a shed that's built on pads. I mean, there's no structure underneath that wood shed. Maybe if it had a proper foundation, it's not the flood height, there's no stack on a shed.
You just have to come into our yard to see the water being diverted.
Yeah, I want no engagement.
I just have a, so back to the drainage, and you said it's in the engineer's report, has the drainage plan been done?
A drainage off the hill?
Yeah, for your whole property, like, to make sure, like,
Well, it's the lay of the land, we're the lowest lot on the street, so naturally the water goes to the river, right?
So no plan's been done, right? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, there's no,
Going
no
by natural
drainage plan has,
Yeah.
yeah, like a civil elevation plotted and figured out, okay.
well, the province came and gave us our flood approval, right? And we approved.
No, I know that.
Stage one of the permits.
I'm just talking about a drainage plan. Like, when we get all
Yeah.
these developers doing, they have to provide
Sure.
a drainage plan to ensure that it's working,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely,
We might have, okay,
that's no problem.
okay.
Yeah, just to feed up what Janine was saying, as long as
Yeah, we're not,
the heavy rain's not flowing into flood bank.
yeah, exactly. There is a ditch there.
Yeah,
Between the two properties.
Yeah.
And it actually does work, because my culvert flows, and then it comes down that main ditch between Vince's and my property, and then the culvert takes it to the river. So there is a ditch there between the two properties, and I've maintained it.
Anything else from council?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Good, thanks, guys, I appreciate it. Okay, I'll close the public hearing at 7:48 PM. Do I have a mover? Councilor Pelletier, second, Councilor Lamore.
Therefore, it be resolved that conditional use application C 2022-2023 is approved subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant obtains a building permit from the RM office. 2, submitted plans are to include detailed architectural drawings stamped by an engineer. 3, that the applicant is to apply for, obtain a flood elevation permit and a septic field permit from the province. 4, that the applicant is responsible for all associated costs in connecting to municipal water system. 5, that drainage shall not affect neighboring properties. 6, that the applicant shall sign confirmation letters accepting the terms of the order. There may be site audits conducted to ensure compliance, and any non-compliance may be caused to revoke the conditional use at any time.
Thank you. I'll open up for, council discussion. Councilor Lewis?
Could we, set a timeline, I mean, I'm not sure if we're obligated to do so, but to backfill that existing lake pond in a timely fashion, I know it's being done, but.
Yeah, it's kind of subject to availability of fill, right? So, like, we try our best, when we can get it, we get it.
What kind of timeframe?
Yeah.
Well, that, I mean, that's,
Because
I knew that point also, so.
Well, maybe
And
not
it
even
seems-
time frame, but just put it in the conditions that the pond.
that does not be built, period.
Yeah. Well, I would also like to request that a drainage study be done. This is a pretty, sensitive piece of property for everybody involved. It would be peace of mind, it would just ensure it's done properly. But further to that, we all know what it's the floodplain. We all know that. These roads shouldn't have even been put there in the first place. But we can't go back now. But we can't stop development. It's another evacuation, it's another expense, it's another more road damage. It just, we've all seen it, and it's just another heavy burden on that river.
It's kind of a useless property.
Sorry, this is just for council.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, no, that's all. Anyone else from council?
Here we go with Houghton again. The report that they provided is something that we see that the province provides. This isn't $4,000 two-pager on a napkin. This is full study, piezometers, measuring slope and slump. They've done their homework here. There's I know the concerns of the neighbors, but I think with the drainage plan, just to make sure we're not slowing down too much water getting to the river. And the neighbor across the street, their hill is right on the property line with their neighbor. So that if there is a precedent here already, I'm not concerned with it starting another one. And with that, with the Borough pit being half full already, I think that's gonna mitigate a lot of next spring's issues if it doesn't get filled by then. So yeah, I don't have concerns with this.
Anyone else on council? No, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried 4-1. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I know it seems like people are against you on this, but it's their neighborhood that they've lived in for a while. So be friendly, all of you, because you're all gonna live together for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And there are good people down the street, and we know that, so.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers, I appreciate that. Moving on to item 7.1.2, 4165-238268 Valley Fiber Grand Point RCO. Sorry, 6.1.2 C23 2023 Henry 2126 tax 59.
The proposal is to allow a government suite in the agricultural general zone. Again, notices have been posted to neighboring properties, as well as sent to the McDonald Retail Planning District, Public Works Manager, Building Inspector, Council, CAO Fire Chief, as well as posted on-site at the Eldershain Country Store, municipal board, and municipal website, and the Connect message was sent out just recently as well.
Thank you. Open the public hearing at 7:54 PM. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor? There's one in person. Anyone wishing to speak in favor online or on the phone? No one's here as well. Anything received in person? In favor?
Nothing
No.
received.
Anyone wishing to speak against, online or on the phone? Nothing. Anything received against?
Nothing received.
Okay, one last call. Anyone wishing to make any comments, speak in favor in person, against in person, online, on the phone, nothing. Okay, I'll close the public hearing at 7:54 PM. Do I have a mover? Councilor Bonnefield, second, Councilor Delange. There's no one here.
BA Council. Sorry, mover.
Councilor Lemoine, and then second by Councilor Delange.
Therefore, be resolved that conditional use application C-23-2023 is approved subject to the following conditions. One, the applicant shall apply and be approved for a building permit through the rural municipality of Reach Out. Two, that the appropriate permits through various environmental compliance enforcement branch and water and wastewater measurements, if it's applicable. Three, that the garden suite shall comply to zoning bylaw 9-2019 as amended. 4, that the garden suite must be connected to the existing hydro, water, and septic systems. 5, that the garden suite shall not be rented out to the general public at any time. And 6, that the applicant provide a signed confirmation letter accepting the terms of the order. There may be site audits conducted to ensure compliance, and non-compliance issues may cause to revoke the conditional use at any time.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. I'll open up for council debate. Council, anything to add? Comments? No?
Do you remember what the reason was that we put the not rented to general public again?
Your memory is as good as mine.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, not against those, but that's a problem. No, that's fine, we can leave it as is. Yeah.
I think the general intent of our zoning bylaw is to have, family members or something of that nature and not have it rented out as a rental income property.
Perfect. Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, none, that is carried. Thank you. Moving back to the top. Item 3, adoption of the minutes. Do I have a mover? Councilor Bonner-Truck, second. Councilor Pelche.
Last regular council meeting was held September 6th, whereby the RCMP made a presentation regarding their statistics of the second quarter, I believe. Again, a reminder that it is Rail Safety Week this week from September 18th to 24th, so please be wary of those crossings. Board of Revision is coming up on October 11th, and the board has been set by council, and also a development agreement has been entered into agreement with the property south of the foundation.
Thank you. Council, any changes, edits, questions? I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Item 4, committee reports and minutes. Do I have a mover? Councilor Lemoine, second. Councilor Belanger.
Report from Councilor Pelche regarding the capital region. I believe he also provided the link for any further information.
Thank you, Councilor Pelche. Questions from council? There will be a test.
I will not be doing that.
It was lengthy. It's a lengthy read, yes. Yeah, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. 5.1 accounts not paid to be approved. I have a mover. Councilor Bonner-Truck, second. Councilor Pelche.
Two batches, 17,747, in the amount of 655,000. Summary of that batch has been provided to council, as well as an EFT batch of 858, and a small batch for a utility refund.
Thank you. Council, any comments, questions? Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 5.2 payroll to be approved. I have a mover. Councilor Pelche, second. Councilor Belanger.
Payroll 18, quickly, no issues regarding overtime or bank time during that time period.
Thank you. Council, any comments, questions? None. Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And jumping over public hearings, unless you want to do them again. Item 7.1.1, 4165, 22, 8221, Lero, merci beaucoup. One lot farmstead revision. Do I have a mover? Councilor Belanger, second. Councilor Lemoine.
This is in regards to a property at the northeast 330904. I believe it is a farmstead being subdivided from the rest of the ag land. I believe community planning has no issues. There will be a minor variation, but that will be handled through the administration, and capital fees created as a result of the new parcel. And also one condition that there is no building or buildings to be built on the residual parcel.
Thank you. Council, any comments, questions? Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried by vote. Thank you. 7.1.2, 4165238268, Valley Fiber Grand Point RCO. Do I have a mover? Councilor Belanger, second. Councilor Bonner-Truck.
This is in regard to some land that the municipality has created as a result of a road closing, for the purpose of, acquiring some parcels to be able to fit, an RCO for Valley Fiber. Community planning, again, no objections there. Requirement to enter into a development agreement with the municipality is pretty standard, and I believe there's some form of easement agreements with Hydro. The way we're wording the resolution is that they comply with any other agencies as required, so it's pretty standard.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from council?
Driveway bin, heads packed, moving,
Ready to go?
or my box structure, start.
I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 7.2.1, appointment of animal control officer. Do I have a mover? Councilor one, second, Councilor Potter. Been a year.
As a result of our loss in regarding, the animal control officer position, we're without that position, and so are a few other municipalities, so we're still struggling to find a replacement. In the meantime, administration is making a recommendation to council that we appoint, Norbert Pedant from the commissioners. Norbert is the guy doing our bylaw enforcement as we speak, and any animal control issues, should be dealt by, Norbert if council deems appropriate.
Okay, time for council debate discussion. No, call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And item 10, adjournment. Do I have a mover? Councilor Pelletier, second. Call for the question, final thoughts? No? Call for the question, all those in favor? That is carried 5-0. Thank you everyone for coming, and have a great night. You can stop recording.